Hi, it's Dr. Parikh, and today we're talking about writing feedback. And I have a bit of a full house today, so if you hear some toddler happy or sad screaming in the background, I apologize. So in this class, there's a lot of feedback, and there's different kinds of feedback you get. Right now I have the weekly to-do list pulled up, and we'll talk about just a couple of assignments and think about how feedback plays a role in the course. I've highlighted a few things that probably shouldn't be highlighted by the time you get back to it. And again, I may tweak things here and there, so your to-do list might look slightly different than the one here in the video. I'm doing this summer 2019. So some assignments you submit until I'm happy with it. That's the case for the first APA quiz that's on plagiarism. You submit until I am satisfied that you understand what plagiarism is, not just taking someone else's words and using them as your own, but to have a more in-depth understanding of several different types of plagiarism. So that's an assignment that you submit until I'm happy with it. I'll specifically tell you what I want to see done differently. I'll tell you what the problem is, what I want to see differently, and I will specifically say resubmit this. Now that doesn't happen with very many assignments. Most assignments are more like the title page. So the title page you submit, and there's a really detailed rubric that points out, in that case, pretty precisely where the mistake is. So for example, there's author for the first article, year, title of article, title of journal. So I don't tell you, you need a space after the author's initial. I do expect you to then go look at the requirements and try to see if you can figure out what you missed. If you still can't figure it out, you can email me or come to office hours with specific questions. If you feel totally lost and you really need somebody to sit down with you and go line by line what you made mistakes on, then you should come to office hours or go for an extra tutoring session. If there's just one thing that you can't figure out, that's a great email to write. So the title page, you get most of your feedback through the rubric, and very rarely do I accept a resubmission of that assignment. Because if everybody submitted every assignment 2 to 3 times, it would just be pandemonium on my end. There's no way I could keep up with that amount of grading. And it's not particularly fair because it's sort of like the first one doesn't count. In this class, typically each assignment counts, but you get to find the mistakes and fix them for a later assignment. So you don't get to fix your title page for this 15 points, but every assignment in the future, where you turn in a full paper, you get some credit for the title page being correct. And this class is really preparing you for writing papers in the future. So you learn, feedback is how you learn and grow. I'm not trying to trick anybody or drive anybody's grade down just for the thrill of it. It's really about letting you know where you are and how to get better. There's also required tutoring as part of this class. I ask you specifically to go to, I recommend our campus writing center if you can make it, but you can also use the online tutoring. And I've had almost 100% positive experiences reported by students at our writing center. The online tutoring has been a little more mixed, which is why I say, I trust our writing center more, but I've had people have really good experiences with the online tutoring. So for the first week, you're going to schedule 2 sessions, and the assignment explains what dates you need to have those in by, because I want you to have one pretty quickly and one a little bit later. You can do them as early as you want. You could do both of them this week if you really wanted to, but I encourage you to spread it out a little bit just so that you get feedback at different stages. Let me show you real quick. So if you go here, I'm in Blackboard, and again, I may rearrange things a little bit, but at this moment it's under Writing Resources, Online Tutoring. Look for something that says Tutoring, Writing Tutoring, something like that. And there's a video that talks about how to use our online tutoring, and then there's a quick start guide. I have it pulled up already over here. It kind of talks you through what to do. The people I've heard have the best experiences have actually just done drop-in tutoring. That's not great, and you can't tell me, if you submit and say I'm going to do drop-in tutoring on these days, you're not going to get full points. But if you do plan and then for some reason the tutor doesn't connect, I would encourage you to try the drop-in tutoring. Or if you just want little extra help along the way, the drop-in tutoring again. I've had people report good experiences with that. You can also link to the Caldwell University Writing Center. You can click that and that just kind of tells you about it. Yep, so it describes it. And it walks you through how to go through. You sign up for it in essentially the same place that you sign up if your academic advisor uses that. It's the same app. And here I'm on the portal. I'm going to make this bigger and cover my face up just so it looks more normal. And this talks, so here on the portal, I'm under students, and then I'm under the right place. And it talks you through. It's summer now, so there's special instructions. You can also, there's a link to Cougar Link with instructions. And if you scroll down, they have some resources linked like Purdue OWL, which I think has great resources for APA style. And then there's also a link to the online tutoring. And if you contact me, I can give you a list of people that I've worked with. I know Mary Ladani does excellent work, but I can give you a list of whoever's currently a good fit for this class. Anyone there can help you with spelling, grammar. Several people there can help you with APA style, but I'm happy to recommend specific people. Now, why do I require you to do tutoring? Because I didn't do it in undergrad. I thought it was for people who weren't me. I was a fairly strong writer, and so I assumed that it wouldn't be helpful. And I was wrong because I got to grad school and I was really underprepared for grad school. And it was really tough to suddenly start getting formative feedback. I'm very grateful to the people who gave me that feedback. It helps me be the writer I am. It helps me have the passion for writing that gets me teaching this course. But I want students to have an early experience with the Writing Center to learn that it is helpful, it is for them. Regardless of what level you are as a writer, you can become better by going to the Writing Center. It's like getting coaching for athletics. You may be a gifted athlete, but to improve, you need practice and feedback in the form of coaching. So the Writing Center is a wonderful resource to have. So I require you to go, and some students require you to bring, some faculty require you to bring in like a signed something or other. What I have you do is just reflect on it a little bit. So when you get to the assignments for that, you'll see, I just have you write, and let's see. Oh, it's not going to be in there. Sorry. But I just have you write a little bit telling me what the session was like, and I give you a few questions to inspire you if you're not sure what to write about. So let's think about other kinds of feedback that you get in this course. In week 2, you do a paraphrase writing sample, and you get feedback, and this is so that we can identify any plagiarism issues early, and we can give you feedback quickly about your basic writing skills before you start doing a lot of the writing work for the course. So you're going to turn in an assignment to me. You're also going to take it for tutoring. The tutoring reflection isn't due until kind of the end of the week because I didn't want to put too much time pressure on you. But if you do it earlier, you can use the tutor's feedback to make it better when you submit it to me, which will get you more points. So when you submit it to me, that's it, you're done. That was your one shot. You'll also submit it to peers to get peer feedback. I have you do a lot of peer feedback, partly because I can't be everywhere at once, and so it gets you something a little faster than I could, but also because I think it's really helpful to see other people's paper and writing and process. You can see people who are better than you, people who are, who you can teach, and those aren't necessarily different groups. You can often give feedback to someone who is helpful feedback to someone who is in most ways a stronger writer than you. You still have valuable things to point out. Even just, I got a little confused here. That's valuable feedback. And then you'll do your first tutoring reflection, your first of 2, where you just tell me what it was like to meet with the tutor. So in some cases, you get feedback from several sources. Looking a little later, there are times where you get even more peer feedback, and there's detailed peer feedback forms. So if you look, here's the Google Drive folder that has a lot of the stuff in it. And let's see, discussion. So I've taken the APA rules, the rubric, and I've tried to create something where peers can really go through and answer a bunch of yes or no questions. So you'll copy this onto your drive or download it, whatever you want to do. You can even print it out and upload pictures of it. And the easiest way is to bold which one you want, but you can also highlight it or do other things, just some way to indicate the answer for each one. So you get this detailed feedback from peers. I also give feedback on outlines. So again, you're not resubmitting assignments, so you submit it, you do it, you get feedback. You don't get to redo that assignment, but you move on to the next step and you make changes there. So you submit your notes, I give you feedback on those. That feedback should show up when you submit your outline. You should have better versions of paraphrases based on the feedback I've given you. Your outline I look through to make sure the content is there, that you're doing the things you need to do for the paper. I give you feedback mostly in the rubric, a little, maybe a couple short comments. Your peers give you feedback. That makes its way into the draft you post to your peers, and their feedback makes its way into the draft that you submit to me later. You also have, again, the research question is another one of those assignments that you do submit until it's right, because the rest of the paper really rests on that being okay. But those are rare. And then you have the final literature review paper. That one's an interesting one. For my in-person classes, I started doing final meetings for the paper instead of a final graded paper, partly because by the end of the semester, I really hate my life when I'm sitting there grading a huge stack of giant papers. But I really enjoy meeting with students. So partly it was to manage my workload and do something I like more. But what I found, I really walked away from the meeting suspecting that students had learned more in that half-hour meeting than they did the rest of the semester. And so I wanted to, for one, open that up to my online students, and for another, move it earlier in the semester. So now for your literature review final paper, we're going to do an in-person meeting if possible. You can do it physically in my office. We can also do it over a video chat. If you can't do that, then I'm going to record a private screen recording, where I walk through your paper and show you, almost exactly as I would talk through things if we were in person. It would not be public on my YouTube page. It would be something where I could just send you a link that's private just for you. And then at the end of the semester, I would delete it. You would still get your rubric normally, but because I need to give you the feedback pretty quickly, there's this really limited window for scheduling. So we'll work that out. I will share my calendar with options for booking. You can request certain times and I'll see if I can accommodate it. But I'm really excited about starting this new way of giving greater depth of feedback, explaining a little more behind what you're doing well and what you need to improve, and moving it earlier in the semester so it can really trickle down. You can try some of these fixes for your final research proposal paper. When you get feedback, it is almost always difficult to hear it first. So I'll talk a little bit about my strategies for handling feedback, and I'll make this full screen actually if I can. That's not really full screen, but oh well. So when you get feedback, the first thing to know is that it's always going to be a little hard to hear it first. So if you are in a super crummy mood and you're just about to go to bed, just ignore it. Don't open it until the next day. When you open it, read through it once, close it, and go do a distractor task. Expect to be annoyed, expect to be frustrated, and expect to maybe be a little disappointed, maybe a little hurt. Not necessarily, not with every single thing, but it's common when you're getting feedback, especially on writing, because so much of who you are goes in and what you think goes onto the page. And you may be frustrated with yourself for making silly mistakes that you know you could have checked for and caught. So I always recommend, if at all possible, read it, set it aside for a day or two, or even just an hour or two, and pick it back up. What I find personally, whether it's feedback on something I've written or feedback on a class I've taught, almost always the second time I read it through, it feels completely different than the first time. The first time I notice all of the critique, and the second time it feels better, it feels more real. So if you feel any of those strong emotions, know that that's normal. That's part of the process, and plan for it, anticipate it. I never open that sort of feedback right before I go to bed. Take some time, and especially if you notice that you're getting feedback consistently from more than one person, even if you feel like they're wrong, take time to think about it. One of my favorite stories about feedback is when I was in grad school, I would often ask my husband to look things over for me. And he looked over this paragraph and he said, "This was hard to read, I got confused." And I said, "No, you're wrong. It was totally clear." I go to class the next day, I ask a peer to read it. The peer tells me the same thing about the same spot. I got lost here. It was confusing. And I said, "Crap, I have to go apologize to my husband." If a reader tells you that they were confused, you can't argue with them. If two readers tell you they were confused, you can't argue with anyone. You really learn to accept that if somebody was confused, there's probably a way you can make it more clear. Often just trying to completely rewrite a sentence. It's helpful to be writing with other people, because then you can stop and say, "Hey, do you mind reading this sentence for me," and see if it makes sense. So as much as possible, work to integrate feedback into your writing process several times along the way. Even the Writing Center, it's not meant to just be, okay, catch any proofread for me for grammatical errors right before I turn it in. The Writing Center can really help you understand your articles, paraphrase well, take good notes, organize your paper, make your paragraphs and sentences strong, and then do this final edit check. Getting feedback is a skill. It's not always easy. I build a lot of it into this class, and I know that can be intense and overwhelming, but we're always moving forward. When you give feedback, work to be as positive as you can. When you get feedback, work to take care of yourself in the process and to get everything you can from the feedback. Thanks for listening. Bye.